Dr. Corinne Allen, international author, lecturer, researcher, and practitioner in natural health, nutrition, and neurodevelopmental education for over 30 years, is an expert on how to affect brain health, learning, and behavior problems without using drugs. She's a recognized healthcare leader for her natural and practical approach to health regarding natural and alternative methods of stimulating permanent changes in the brain for issues like ADD, autism, Asperger's, dyslexia, learning disabilities, academic and behavioral issues, and acute and chronic brain injuries. She has developed a brain program which facilitates the connection of neurological pathways for brain cells which have been injured, damaged, missing, or not properly working. Dr. Allen's brain research is applied in the Advanced Learning and Development Institute's brain programs. Through the Advanced Learning and Development Brain Camps, Dr. Allen's method of repairing the brain has helped many families find help, solutions, and hope for their brain problems. Now let's join Dr. Corinne Allen as she speaks on Your Brain on Water.
And I appreciate all your interest in the brain. How many of you have personal friends or family who have brain issues on any spectrum? We're not talking about autism, good. We see it everywhere. We now have 1 in 75 on the autism spectrum. Research shows that 7 out of 10 people actually have some kind of injury in the brain from birth. And we see statistics that now say 1 in 10 have brain injury on some level. And I think if anybody is a teacher or a worker in the public school system, you understand and know that we have a very serious problem. And it becomes very, very serious when that problem comes into your own family and into your own home, right? And it's what do we do about it? And what can we do about it within our financial means? Because these things can break the budget. So we're going to give you some exciting things tonight about how you can share this with others and use it more effectively for yourselves. I've been in the natural health field for over 30 years, and I'm going to tell on myself a bit tonight because, you know, a lot of us in the field think we've learned a lot, and we have, and we know a lot, and we do, but we never know enough. And I told people to use the wrong kind of water for a lot of years. And one of, you know, the things that when I found good water, the best water, I immediately grabbed onto it because I'd been teaching people about pH and acid alkaline, and we tried all the products that we could think of to get that to work for them, and of course the diets, and nothing worked like what we're going to show you tonight. And because we have a brain center where we work with brain injuries and actually do a 2-week intense program to help the brain to re-circuit its pathways and do them permanently, water is a very core part of that issue. So we're just going to talk about the full spectrum of brain issues tonight and how the water, the very special water that we're going to talk about tonight, is going to help them. Your brain on water. You know that water is the very most important ingredient in your health. How many of you believe that? Now, I believed that 30 years ago, but I didn't practice it. And I didn't have a way to give people the best avenue to get that water into them. It's the one big secret that is being missed. Water is essential to superior health and wellness. And we're particularly concentrating on the brain because that is the part today that is exponentially out of control. Now, the composition of water. We have water in the body. We have it in the brain. 80% of your brain is water. How come nobody talks about water in your brain? How come nobody says, take this for your problem? They say, take this pill or take this nutrient, and we forget about water. Our purpose tonight is to show you how the first and the foremost thing that we want to do is we want to do water, but the right kind of water, because folks, we're going to show you that if you do the wrong kind of water, you're really wasting your effort. Now, the body is 75% water, and in that you have your bones. They need water. Your kidneys, look how high your kidneys are, 82%. No wonder people get kidney infections and kidney problems, because they cannot flush those kidneys if you don't have them filled with 82% water. And your muscles need 75. How many of you get muscle aches and pains? And there's not enough water flushing the toxins out. And then the blood, look at that, 90%. Is it any wonder why people that drink coffee and sodas and very little water get hardening of the arteries, and we have such a high amount of people in our population today that are on cholesterol medications, and heart disease is the #1 killer? It's because 90% of the blood is water. Your brain on water. Your brain is the missing link in the health of your brain. It's the essence of life. It has the electromagnetic current that fuels our cells. It's a resonance field. It's all electrical through which the cells communicate. So if you want transfer of DNA, you've got to have the proper water. It's the conduit and the transmission of the vibrational information. The water transports, it stabilizes, it signals, it lubricates, and it structures. It does almost everything. And without it, you can't have brain neurotransmissions that are working properly. How does the body use the water? It uses it to produce hydroelectric energy, especially in the brain. How many of you have ever seen a hydroelectric water in the home? I have. I live in Idaho. Lots of people live off the grid there. I've seen an entire ranch set up on hydroelectric, and you don't get electricity if the water isn't flushing and moving and has a charge to it. And that's the same with our brain. Your water has to be flushing and moving. It has to be a lot, or you don't get a charge. You can use water to make protein and enzymes function efficiently. It transports nutrients, it transports hormones and other elements, and it keeps your tissues from drying out. How does your body use water? The Mayo Clinic gives us these examples. That it moistens in our mouth, our lips. When we have dry lips, dry hair, dry skin, it's all dehydration. It protects the organs and the tissues when they start to shrivel up, and that is part of dehydration. Constipation, diarrhea. It helps dissolve minerals and other things. Minerals get hardened in our brain and start giving us sclerosis in our arteries. It regulates our body temperature. It helps lubricate the joints. You've heard people say how they can now do things that they couldn't do before because their joints start being lubricated. It lessens the burdens on the kidney, and it carries oxygen to the cells. Other functions of water is that it slows down the cell death. And because we don't see the cell death, we often don't think that we're dying. We're all dying. But we can slow that process down. It lubricates and it cushions. The water flushes out the toxins and poisons, and it helps produce digestive enzymes. And a lot of us have seen how water, and particularly special ionized microclustered water, can move away the aches and the pains in the body. The brain absolutely desperately needs water to function at its best. And even mild dehydration slows the metabolism down by as much as 3%. And we're going to show you what happens and some of the signs of dehydration. One of the things that people don't realize is, how does water get lost? In my life, that was not part of my coursework to study to become a natural health practitioner. We never had a course on water. It was like at the end of the sentence it was drink lots of water. But there was never any teaching on drink the right kind of water, and drink water that's electrical, drink water that's a free radical scavenger, drink water that's going to hydrate. We lose water by sweating. When we urinate or have a bowel movement, we lose water. And in a normal day, a person has to drink a significant amount of water to replace that fluid loss that is for normal metabolism. If you happen to drink a cup of coffee a day, or you have a glass of wine, or you have a soda, your need will move up exponentially, and even the basic amount of water will not hydrate you. Causes of dehydration, a very easy cause is you just didn't drink enough water. But what happens is the effects are accumulative. The body uses 2.5 liters, which is about 9 cups of water a day, according to the Mayo Clinic. Now, folks, the Mayo Clinic is mainline and very, very conservative. That is just what you need, folks, to stay alive. Will you please repeat with me? 9 cups just keeps me alive. 9 cups just keeps me alive. So when you hear these things that say 8 glasses of water, 9 cups of water, whatever, it isn't even enough, according to the Mayo Clinic, to keep your bodily metabolism and bodily processes hydrated in the least amount. More causes of cellular dehydration, if you have any kind of work. Now, strenuous activities can be mental or it can be stress. How many of you have stressful jobs? Most people do or have stress somewhere in their life. Maybe I should have said, how many of you have stressful kids or grandkids? Maybe that's what your trigger is to more hands. Okay, so if you eat foods that are little in fruits and vegetables, they're dried foods. They take a lot of water to digest. And acid, it's like you didn't drink at all. Because acid consumption of water, and how many of us have been diligent about getting purified water? How many of you out there have been really diligent about making sure you don't drink tap water and you drink bottled? Oh, I was adamant, you know, we have RO in our house, we have distilled, we have everywhere I go, we have purified water. It's acid water, you might as well drink nothing. And digestion of, in the digestion process, the fluids are not being replaced. Thirst is the last thing. And you know, I can remember saying to clients, you need to drink more water, and they would say to me, but I'm not thirsty. And I really didn't have a good comeback other than, you need to drink more water. But I sure do now, and you will too. Dehydration occurs when there's more water leaving the body than is being taken in. And the body is dynamic. It's moving all the time, and it's always changing. And this is especially true with the water levels in the body. How many of you notice now that your body craves water? I've noticed since I've gotten on microclustered water, I can tell my body is like listening now. It's like it's woken up all the receptors, and it like says, I need more water. And before, I never was thirsty, and I would forget to drink. So your water routinely needs to be replaced. So we lose it in all of these examples, which we're going to now show you. How many of you are not aging? Oh, we got some. Well, I tell you, after I hit about 45, I started to feel it. And after I hit 50, I started to feel it more. And then the next decade, I felt it more. And I am so thankful to God that He brought into my life and into the United States, because literally this was not available to us many, many years ago, that now I have a tool before I'm 100 to start really challenging my aging process. And you see, aging causes a decreased thirst. It just goes away. And you see many, many older people who say, I'm drinking? And you look, my folks are 93 and 90, they live in a retirement home. Nobody drinks water there. It's like water purifiers. It's like foreign. And they're all suffering too. They're not in very good health. Another thing that we sometimes don't want to hear, don't want to see, is that alcohol causes dehydration. Well, if you're going to drink, then at least be aware you need to drink a whole lot more of the right kind of water to deal with that dehydration it causes. Now, there are special circumstances that cause dehydration, and one of them is burns. And if you know anybody that has lots of burns or little burns, they're going to need a lot more water in their body. Here's another one of those American, don't tell me, don't talk to me about it, I'm going to keep my cup of coffee. You know, when I was very, very ill in my 20s, this is what led me into nutrition and natural health, I had to quit coffee because it was actually pushing my energy down. And I thank God it did, because I realized then what it was not going to help build up my health. And a lot of people just haven't gotten that yet. They haven't figured out that it's reducing your melatonin in your brain. That's very, very important for good, sound sleep. It's decreasing your memory enzymes. I want to be full of a good memory on into my 90s and 100s. It can cause DNA damage. It affects your overall brain functioning. How many students do you know? And when I went to college and grad school, everybody was drinking coffee to what? Think, study, stay awake through the night. I couldn't handle it. Thank God at that time I was sick enough that even coffee wasn't helping me. But it actually depletes their brain functioning. And when people crave coffee, it's a craving for water that their body needs. 10 ounces of coffee removes 12 ounces of water from the body. Dehydration is caused by diarrhea. Diets cause dehydration. When you see people or yourself or whoever, when they eat a lot of snacky foods, processed foods, refined grains, chemicals, high in chemicals, preservatives, sugar is a big one. It steals the water from you, and people don't think like that. Now, of course, salty foods cause you to crave and maybe to thirst water, but what do people quench that thirst with or try to quench it with? Sodas or iced tea or something that further causes dehydration. Exercise uses up water. We know that this doesn't include just the physical exercise, but it includes the mental as well. You're going to need way more than the 2.5 liters to fill up that body's dehydration just from some of these things. Fever, we know that edema means dehydration. I've told this to people for years, and you know what? It's so hard for our brains to get it. Well, how can that be a lack of water when I got too much water? Well, it's because the inside of the cell is mostly salt and your potassium sodium pumps aren't working right. And the body pulls the water from other parts to assist that area, and you get dehydration. And if you drink enough water, you must drink it until your urine is clear. Now, the only exception to that is, of course, if you just took a B complex with the riboflavin in it, and that will make the urine very yellow. Water is the best natural diuretic, and if people would just use a lot more of that, they would find their swelling and things would be much more improved. High altitude causes dehydration. Again, I'm going to tell you a little story about myself. It's kind of, when I look at it now, it makes me feel rather stupid and ignorant. But I went to Ecuador a few years ago, and I got very sick in Quito. And I thought, what's the matter? I'm not sick. I don't want to get the flu. I felt horrible. And, we had a bottled water here, bottled water there, bottled acid water. And, I was sick. And it was a health trip. There were a lot of other people there who were into health, and nobody knew to drink water. In fact, you know what they gave me? They gave me cacao, which is chocolate, which has caffeine, which further dehydrates you. I didn't know any better. I was so desperate, so I took it. But now, if I go back there or any high elevation, I'm going to know you drink a lot of the right kind of water and really hydrate yourself well. Another reason, we all know this one, we've all said it, we've all known it, is when you're sick, you get dehydrated. And why? Because you got to flush those toxins. And one of the reasons why we get sick is because we haven't flushed the toxins and also haven't flushed them with the right kind of water. Chronically ill people have to have the right kind of water, because if you don't, they just get stuck there and then they cause all kinds of illness. This is a huge area with medications causing dehydration. If you will look in the medicine on the internet or anywhere where they talk about the side effects of drugs, look at what they say for diuretics and antihistamines and blood pressure medication and psychiatric drugs. You will be shocked at the list of symptoms that are all what I'm telling you: vomiting, diarrhea, excessive thirst, swelling. All of these kinds of things that are produced by the drug are because they're producing in you dehydration. And one of my passions is that people who are on psychiatric drugs are getting drained dry in the brain. It's like sucking the water out of the brain, because these drugs are just pulling the water that is needed for these neurotransmissions to happen. Another one of my passions is the babies that are coming into the world, because we now have a plethora of brain-injured children and children who can't function. I got an email today from a friend who said, "Oh, thanks so much for the work you're doing. And she said, it's almost every day that I get a mom coming up to me and they're all saying, what do we do for our kids? They all have brain issues, they all have ADD, they can't think, they can't concentrate, they can't behave. What do we do? And morning sickness is because of severe dehydration. Oh, I would give anything to have known this 30 years ago, 20 years ago when I had my children, because I had serious morning sickness. I mean, I was sick. And anybody that's a mom that knows that will remember those days. I didn't ever drink water. The thing that saved me is that I took a ton of pills for my pregnancy, and it took me a lot of water to get those pills down. And I'm sure that that's the only reason why my kids are as good as they are. Histamines rise during pregnancy, so you can have, it's absolutely a need for more water. And the amount of hydration that the fetus gets will determine its future in its structure and its function. Did you know that? Now, I want to make something clear to you that I am not giving you the research notations under these, because you will get them in the book that's forthcoming on Your Brain on Water. And they will all be documented, because it will take too much time for us to go through that here. But all of these things that I'm telling you are documented in the research. Overweight. Do you think an overweight person is going to need 9 glasses of water a day to just metabolize what their body uses and throws off as waste? How many of you think that that'll be? No. But I would say 99.9% of the overweight people do not drink enough water, and that's probably one of the reasons why they're tending to be overweight. It takes more water for a heavier person to complete their digestive and eliminative processes, and dehydration will slow the metabolic rate down. And also, on the other hand, the right kind of water will speed up the metabolism. Water moves the fat deposits, but I must tell you it must be negative ionized water, not positive charged water. In overweight, people get confused with hunger and thirst. Instead of going for water, they go for food, and so that creates more of an imbalance. And ionized water provides the energetic equivalent of food. Now, understand what that's saying. Regular water will not do this, but if you are trying to lose weight and you take the ionized water, it will actually provide energy. It's like a source of food to your cells so that you have energy and your body can burn the fat. Sun exposure causes dehydration. The sun, when you're there, you know how dehydrated we get. And what do people do when they're in the sun and for several hours after? They go get carbonated, caffeinated, alcoholic sugar drinks, and every single one of those creates more dehydration. Of course, sweating creates more dehydration. My son is a great guy that works out. It's a water you can drink while you're working out, and you don't get that slush in your stomach, and you don't feel an upset stomach from it. Stress causes dehydration. I look at the hours I used to work. I still work them, but I used to work them without drinking water. Now I have large glasses of water beside me all day long. And I would think, oh, I'll drink later. Oh, I know I need to drink. And my day would just go push, 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 push all day long. And I didn't do my body too good of good. And, you know, I've had to undo some of those things. But again, it was like I wasn't making the connections, and I believe I wasn't making the connections because I was so dehydrated my brain couldn't put it together. And I didn't have anybody come and tell me that there really was a water. I had lots of people come with alkaline water and these machines out there, and I'd been checking them out for 20 years. And I said, these don't work. They're not doing one thing for you. Why should I spend $1,000, $2,000? Why should I spend anything on them? I don't want to give my clients this kind of water. So I knew, because I was always testing them, that what I was seeing on the market really wasn't working. Stress will use up hormones. It will use up neurotransmitters, making them work harder. It will use up your vital resources, and you have to have water to keep them functioning. Now, we all know that too much salt isn't good, and using the wrong kind of salt is bad for your body because it will grab water and dehydrate you. But using too much salt, especially on salty foods, because that's the wrong kind of salt, folks. They don't put sea salt on those things. We're going to tell you in a few minutes the right kind of salt to use and how to use salt to help your hydration. Of course, vomiting can cause dehydration. So when you see those information on any drugs or anywhere where it says causes vomiting, you know that it's possible it can cause dehydration. What are the dangers of dehydration? Well, if you're dehydrated as much as 5%, it can reduce in as much as 20 to 30% drop or make your physical activity go down. How many of you notice a drop in your energy when you're dehydrated? How many of you notice that when you take the right kind of water, ionized, microclustered water, you have an increase in energy? I mean, it's phenomenal what that can do, and if you take any supplements at all, it pushes them to the height of what they can do. So I can go 16-hour days now with no breaks and just, 10% reduction in your water can make you sick. 20% can even mean death. Isn't that amazing? Only 20%, you can die. 1 to 2%, that's very, very little, folks, in your brain can mean that you have problems concentrating and thinking. How many of you know somebody, I wouldn't ask you if you had that problem, but how many of you know somebody that has that problem? I think we all do, and at times we all do. Dehydration is a cumulative, it comes together. You see, the average person drinks 160,000 gallons of water in a lifetime, and 75% of the citizens around the world in developed countries are chronically dehydrated. I would have never believed that before my experience with water personally and what I've seen with my clients and our brain participants in our brain center. It's absolutely true. People are so dehydrated. 1/3 of the Americans have such a weak thirst sensation that they mistake it for hunger. And look at the obesity that we have. Look at how many of us, we don't like it, struggle with weight. And it's one of the number one reasons is water. If 80% of your brain is water, which runs your pituitary, your hypothalamus, which regulates your weight, and if your body is 75% water, and that is related to your hunger drives and your thirst, we know that water is a huge part of why we are not getting the weight that we want. Brain dehydration, it brings on feelings, if we're dehydrated, of anxiety and depression. The brain doesn't function properly. It uses up amino acids that are called our happy aminos that have to be working. The worse the dehydration is, the worse the depression and anxiety are. I wish I could go back to my clients who had such severe depression that they chose to go to psychiatric drugs. I wished, and nutrients weren't doing it, folks, and maybe you know people like that. Diet, they were doing all the right things, and they still couldn't get past that depression. And there are people that you're going to run into. And the reason is because they don't have the electromagnetic energy moved by the fluids in their brain through the right kind of water to get that depression to be able to do what it's supposed to do, go away. And anxiety is at a height in our world today. ATP is needed for the cellular energy. It's greatly reduced, and there's no energy. And the poor brain just can't function. How many of you have had, I just can't think today. I can't get it right. You ever gone into a room to get something? What did I come in here for? We've all done it. And the only thing is it gets worse after you get 50 and 60 and 70, doesn't it? And so that's your trigger. Boy, I'm not drinking enough. I got to get back and get my water, but get the right kind of water. What are the side effects of brain dehydration? One of the side effects is your body starts to use up the antioxidants because of its great need to get rid of body toxins. What is one of the biggest things on the market today? Antioxidants. It's millions of dollars are being spent on antioxidants because they're being used up because of a lack of water. Brain aminos are used up to make up for this lack of water. Tryptophan and tyrosine are amino acids that are mood stabilizers. Their deficiency makes us feel anxious and depressed. Dehydration and mental functioning. Folks, part of my passion is to help you, to give you a tool to get to teachers, to get into schools, to get into our public facilities where our children are being, they're being labeled, they're being given drugs because they cannot have a good memory, they have a fuzzy memory, they can't remember math, and they can't focus. It's loaded in the schools today. And if they had the proper water, this would probably dissipate very quickly. Dehydration lowers the psychomotor processing speed, the memory, the concentration, and fatigue. How many kids and families do you know they come home and they have no energy left? They can't do anything. They want to sleep till noon on the weekends. They can't think through their school to get it done quickly. It's epidemic, folks. It affects their cognitive ability. It impacts their physical performance and their motor skills. So you are the tool. You are the conduit. You are the caucus to be able to go out and spread the word and use this information to share with people, to get into private schools, to get into church schools where they can start giving it to their students and they can see. The teachers won't be screaming at the parents to put their kids on those awful drugs. Brain issues related to dehydration. Does this look like a very hydrated brain to you? It doesn't to me. This is a real picture of a brain, and it's got a problem. Alzheimer's and dehydration, I have known for years in my practice. That has been research proven. Remember, what I'm telling you here is not my opinion. These are documented facts in research that Alzheimer's and all these other things that I'm going to relate to you are coming from documented studies that